Our next speaker is a friend of mine, Greg Barord, which is not how you pronounce his name because I'm ridiculously tired this morning. Greg Barord, and he's going to be talking about, if you don't know him, and I hope he talks a little bit about this today, he'll talk about his work in Nautilus. I met him years ago on a website called tonemo.com, the octopus news magazine online, where all things cephalopod was discussed. And Greg very quickly was very clear he was the guy to talk to about anything you wanted to know about Nautilus. And he's done some amazing work and continues to do amazing work. And now he's an educator, educating people directly about marine science, which is an incredible thing. And he's going to come up here and he's going to talk to you about some of that right now. So please give a warm welcome to Dr. Greg Barord.
Thanks. Thanks. So welcome. Thanks, Rich. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about Nautilus, but a little bit, because what I'm more excited today to talk about is, glad I wore this, it's bright lights, is students and working with students, working in marine aquariums. And so first I would just like my current and former students up here to stand up. And if y'all could just give them a round of applause. And hopefully over the next few slides, you'll see why they really deserve that applause. So talking about how do you educate kind of the next generation. Maybe they're going into the marine aquarium field, maybe they're not, but it's all about that kind of next generation. And so what I'd like you to do next is to kind of close your eyes, if you're comfortable with that, but think back to the first aquarium you had, way before that. Think back to that. And just kind of visualize, like before you had that aquarium, what kind of class would you have liked to take? What would it look like? What would you be doing? And that class is going to look something like this. So this is the kind of marine biology class that we have in Des Moines, Iowa at Central Campus. And this is the class. So I'm here talking about education, and this is what we do. This is also what we do. So in the marine biology program at Central Campus, we focus on everything aquarium related, but also professionalism, employability skills, so that whatever pathway students go to next, they have that kind of foundational knowledge to kind of land that job. And this, again, is kind of the boring stuff, but I don't want folks to lose track of it, because everything else students do in this program, they're also taking a highly rigorous academic course. But we're here for aquariums, so I'd like you to come into our lab. This is the Marine Science Department at Central Campus in Des Moines, Iowa, and we have approximately 150 different marine aquariums, from as small as 2 gallons to as large as 2,400 gallons. So our overall space is about 10,000 square feet. It's all saltwater. At any given time, we might have 140 different marine species. I'm partial to the invertebrates, the octopus, squid, and then we also have some colorful rocks that I hear folks call corals. But we have about 150 different species that students, just like the ones up here, manage every single day. So they have that academic coursework, they have the management of 150 different aquariums, and most of them don't have any experience with these aquariums. So imagine if you're here running a business or just at home. Every August, we have about 125 students that are brand new to the industry, brand new to aquariums, brand new to feeding. And then in May, we fire them all because they're moving on to something else. And then in August, we repeat 125 new students to this kind of amazing program. And we have a lot of different spaces there as well. So the students make up artificial saltwater. This is our salt room upstairs. Students do all the water quality. We heard a great talk earlier today about the importance of water quality, testing. So we kind of like to give the students the hobbyist test kits, but also what they might be using if they go into a research-based field or a zoo or aquarium. We have a diet kitchen that we prepare foods with, trying to really mimic that professional setting of the zoo or aquarium, whatever it may be. Something as simple as storage is really nice to have when, again, you have new students. When they need something, we want it to be organized. And everything I'm showing you isn't like work done by me, it's work done by students because they wanted to make the change. They wanted to make things a little easier. This year, I have some students who are really, really interested in organizational skills. Apologize, I'm not sure why I can't speak right. And they're kind of looking at the whole lab and seeing how can we do this better? How can we do this better? We also do things like dissections, research projects. We have back labs for that. We have a collections room where lab assistants can do kind of more individualized projects for whatever they need. Excuse me, whatever they may be interested in. And then we have our classroom where we learn about everything from, sorry, I don't know what's going on. I apologize. I just need to take a breath real quick. So we learn everything from the deep sea to coral reefs to kelp forests to also the Gulf of Mexico, which is an ecosystem that I am really partial to. I lived in Galveston, Texas for a while. And so we want to bring that reef into the classroom, but I also don't want students to lose focus of other ecosystems like a kelp forest and like an oyster reef in the Gulf of Mexico. But a little bit about Nautilus. So when I'm not at Central Campus, I'm trying to save this shelled animal that many folks don't really know about. We've been doing this work with Save the Nautilus Foundation for about 10 years or so. And so we travel to the Pacific, we catch them in traps, we record them on videos. We do all of this work to try to save the Nautilus. Jeez, I apologize. Trying to save the Nautilus and then really bringing that research into the classroom. So one thing my students will get is the importance of the Nautilus, and it's cool to see that kind of excitement in them because it kind of keeps my excitement up as well. And then what I think we all find is when you're really interested in one organism, you are interested in lots of different organisms and lots of different ecosystems. So we kind of use this Nautilus as that kind of gateway to caring for the ocean, that gateway to loving the ocean, that gateway for learning about the ocean. My first year at Central Campus, we brought Nautilus in. That was kind of the deal. If I had to move to Iowa, I wanted Nautilus. And so we set up a tank. We didn't have a tank with a chiller on it at that point. We got to work and we brought Nautilus in. And I think this is what we all kind of experience when we look at different aquariums, whether you're looking at kids, adults, grandparents, whatever it is that wonder. And I really like these two photos because they didn't know the photos were being taken, but that wow, what is this animal? Whether it's a really cool Nautilus, a coral, a little tiny amphipod that a student just learns about, but we want that wonder. So after that wonder, the students then get to work. Maintaining aquariums is difficult, and when you're working with students, and really, everyone in general, is you have day-to-day life stuff. So our school is pretty diverse. We have folks from all different backgrounds, and so something as seemingly simple as it. Thank you. Getting students food can be a difficult thing. And so we have different ways of making sure students have the energy to work in the tanks, but also be excited about learning and the whole educational process. And it's all these little side things. We're focused on marine aquariums, we're focused on our fish, but it's the other things that kind of come up that maybe we won't think about. Students in high school are getting jobs, learning about jobs, and wanting to tie a tie while they are taking care of aquariums. And you have spills. So squeegeeing the floor is relatively easy, but it's a job that most students maybe don't like to do. But you have a couple students like this student here who is really, really good at it and takes that initiative of when you see water on the floor, you're getting it up. So we're trying to build these daily routines, these daily responsibilities with our students so that when I come to a conference like this, or when I'm out in the Pacific Ocean, they can manage the lab. So like today, there are students going in on the weekend to feed all those different aquariums. Yesterday, they were there as well. And without their support, we wouldn't be able to share this information with y'all. These are just some of the tanks, but some of the, again, kind of daily things we might do if you're in an aquarium. Squeegeeing the outside after working in the tank, preparing food, talking about cross-contamination, acclimating things. And you're gonna see like a variety of pictures from kind of 9 years ago when I first got to Central Campus to now. And the pictures are gonna change, and you'll see some of the adjustments kind of that students have done. One thing that we started about 8 years ago is changing out all of our lighting systems. So students got experience, not the best experience because I hate kind of doing that, but students got experience with replacing LED lights and installing new LED lights and really doing everything. The Central Campus program is about students, and we're just kind of managing their opportunities, managing what they want to do for the future. And something we started last year, husbandry, cleaning tanks is not the sexiest thing. It's, it can get dull, but we created this Husbandry Hall of Fame. And so when students are just really using that Kent scraper or that doodlebug pad really, really well, they get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and they hold a little gold-plated tool, get their picture taken, and they're up on the wall. And it's things like that that, when you acknowledge a student, when you acknowledge an employee, a friend, a family, it means something. And so it's really cool to see that. So we're gonna continue doing that to acknowledge those little moments throughout the day that students are doing really well. So daily responsibilities, we also have a lot of learning opportunities. So we do different things, whether it's learning how to aquascape, and then name tanks, other kind of more marine focused things by looking at little protozoa and microscopy work, because again, the speaker earlier today talked about the importance of knowing how to use a microscope. So in the back of your mind, still remember we have 150 different aquariums that are kind of running. Now we're also trying to incorporate this academic work and also incorporate kind of a little bit of fun of talking about ecosystem collapse with a fun game of Ocean Jenga. When we did have Nautilus in the past, we talked about treating different animals, and again, it's students kind of doing this work. Even an organism as kind of sensitive and hard to keep as Nautilus, these two students are giving it an antibiotic bath right now. So it's setting them up to be confident, and what we say in our program is confident to fail, not necessarily confidence to succeed. So that's what we're trying to do. And in Iowa, we do have rivers and lakes, and so the opportunities that we have to test water quality in the lab, we also want to show them what does water quality mean in the field. So we go to different lakes and streams and do the same kind of test kits, but just show those two different options. And scientific names, who likes them? I love scientific names. So we don't speak in common names in the marine biology program, and the students probably don't like it. But once they get kind of 10 to 15 scientific names going, it's a lot easier. And so again, trying to balance that kind of home aquarium hobbyist thing with kind of the research aspect of it, and learning about scientific names, and then trying to make it a little fun. This is just an example of a project that one individual student had. We talk a lot about fossils and the fossil record, and in order for the student to kind of visualize what that meant, and more importantly, visualize the fossil record to the rest of our school, they created this kind of paper mache mountain, and now the whole school is seeing it. So something not related to aquariums really, but that gateway of all of us working on the aquariums kind of allows other students to do different things to help out themselves and the school. Something else is planning. So we have a lot of different tanks, we have a lot of different plans. We want the students to figure out what the plan for our lab should be. So when we have a tank of lobsters, do students want do students want to keep the lobsters, or do they want to do something else? So students are also involved in kind of the master collection plan of everything. We do lots of different other dissections, whether it's a necropsy on fish, whether it's just looking at fishes from Alaska with our hands. Yesterday with the meetup and the aquarium science educators, we talked about like hard work and how do you really figure out what a work ethic is and what hard work is. And one of the things for me is just using your hands and getting dirty. So whether it's a slimy fish like this, or whether it's cleaning a protein skimmer with your hands, like those little tiny things, what we try and build into the program every single day. And we send students to conferences like this, conferences in Iowa, conferences in other places, to again give them that experience of knowing about a tank, asking a question, but then presenting that information to folks at professional conferences, whatever they may be. So we've had students do experiments with PAR meters and looking at light levels in different tanks and then presenting that. This was at the Iowa Academy of Sciences. We've had students looking at grass shrimp culture. This paper actually, this poster ended up being published in the Drum and Croker article, which is kind of neat. It was a way for students to raise grass shrimp and a new way that they developed on their own, and something that kind of set us up for success going forward. We've had students do work with antibiotic treatments, veterinary treatments. We work with a veterinarian who volunteers his time to really show students the process, not just do the process for them. We've had students do projects from looking at nitrates, looking at ammonia, and do you thaw stuff? Do you rinse mycid? How does that impact the nitrogen cycle? And just giving them opportunities to kind of network and opportunities to spread the message of the aquarium work they do to a new group of people. Now the aquarium. So again, 150 or so different aquariums. I'm not going to go through them all, but we do have a booth out there with a nice little walkway of our different aquariums. But just to give you kind of an idea of some of the ones that we do have, this is about 1,000 gallons. This is our mooring buoy exhibit, and I like this one because we set this up in kind of the COVID era. We were in class for 1 day a week a couple of years ago, and the goal was to get this tank in. And in order to do that, we had to tear down 7 other tanks, find animals, find places for those animals, and then set this whole tank up. And this is also an example of how much support we have from public aquariums, zoos, business partners. This was donated to us by the Newport Aquarium. Students brought it in, students designed the aquascaping, what animals were gonna go in it, and now we have this, like when you walk into our lab, this is the first kind of thing you see. So it's that first wow, wow moment. This is like 8 years ago, this picture. So we used to have fluorescent lighting throughout. We changed that to LED lighting to kind of give students more opportunities with different things. We did have pufferfish for a while, and I'm happy to announce that we only have like 1 pufferfish now. We used to have 9, but it gave an opportunity for students to learn about different things of how do you treat a tank like that, and how do you make sure that all pufferfish are eating and nobody's getting hurt. With certain tanks, we have them set up for specific research purposes. So this tank is set up to make sure that students can do a project with flounders. And so student group set this up. We have different substrate color, and what they were interested in is, was there a certain substrate that the flounders preferred? And then they ended up presenting that at a conference as well. So all of our tanks, again, we like to set them up temporarily so that when new students come, they can make the changes they want. We bring in cephalopods every now and then. So this is a wonderpuss that we had a couple years ago, and another example of the different organisms students are feeding and working with every day. We again try to bring some fun into it. So when we have Halloween or Thanksgiving, students are able to carve pumpkins, put them in tanks, and just kind of hopefully have that fun every single moment during the day. We did start growing mangroves several years ago. They were growing well, and then all of a sudden just died. So we're starting that up again, but just another kind of way for students to look at different ways to do this. We do have cold water systems as well. So I mentioned the Nautilus tank. We have a kelp forest exhibit where once a year we bring in giant kelp from California as enrichment for our. So this is where the mangroves went into. So we had, if I go back real quick, so this was a student project of figuring out how can we grow mangroves in our lab in kind of this small setting, with the plan to then move those mangroves to our large upside down jellyfish tank that we now have. So this tank was set up a few years ago. It's a couple 100 gallons. Right now it has upside down jellyfish and 1 mangrove left. So we're trying to rework that. We have a lobster tank as well. And again, we rely on kind of donations from lots of folks. This, I guess, Lucky Lobster is one of the orange versions. And a restaurant in Boston didn't want it to be on somebody's plate, so they sent it to us. And now students are working with a lobster, which is another different opportunity. We do a night at the aquarium. The bottom left picture where students come in, all the lights are off, and we have different red lights, different other lights to kind of look at what organisms are doing at night. And then we also do a trip where we take the students to some coast in the United States. So we've gone to places like Washington State, Oregon, California, every coast you can think, but doing something different every single time to connect students with professionals, to connect students with the learning in the field, and show them what a marine scientist's life is kind of like. So we do surveys with kayaking in different places. We do different field studies. So this was from a trip just this past year to Texas. And we do lots of different things with the goal of, having fun. I'm gonna say fun a lot, but really showing students what the marine science field is in a different way. Some of the projects that students do, these are just some of the projects in the lab, is make a mess. This is our back lab, and you can see we have microscopes set up, we have wood on the floor, and we just have lots of stuff going on because when you have, this year I have 90 students in my program, you have 90 different ideas. And so you want to have a setting where they can have an idea and kind of explore it and try it out to see, how it'll work. 7 years ago now, our quarantine setup was 20-gallon tanks just on some counters. And so it's not ideal. Well, obviously it's not ideal. So students work together to build this stand, set it up, and actually have 4 different closed aquarium systems for dedicated quarantine space. So this allowed us to have them always running. So now we have quarantine if we have sick fish, whenever we need to move organisms in there. And again, a student-driven project. Other student-driven projects, on the bottom left is the Oyster Reef Hotel. Toadfish are one of my favorite animals, but they don't do a whole lot. They also tend to bury under the sand. So it's an organism that, how do you teach students about it? How do you see the animal? And a student idea was to put PVC together, glue that together, cover it with oyster reef, and now the toadfish will kind of hang out in those little PVC pieces, and they can be visible. There's a really great aquarium exhibit in Galveston, Texas at Moody Gardens. They have this huge oil rig. It's built into the tank. The protein skimmers are up top. They look like the top of an oil rig. Students wanted to try and recreate that, so that bottom right picture is the finished version of of like a mini oil rig. It looks kind of weird. The proportions are weird, but the process of thinking through, of troubleshooting, of what do you have to do, who do you have to work with, how can you adapt this to the tank that we have, is the important part for there. We also, finally, after last year, have protein skimmers on all of our different systems, which is nice. Again, that student thing, student-driven, getting into different kind of spots to make it work. We don't have a whole lot of space, and the more we are advancing, the more we are changing, we have less and less space. And so now we move from a project like this that's kind of aquarium-centric, it's going to help the aquariums, to back to education, because I was finding that students were looking in our aquariums and they wanted to know more about those organisms. And we give a lot of tours, and so tours that are coming through, we want students to know more about organisms. So they had the idea to create these blue tags, where on the front you have a picture, scientific name, common name. On the back you have a few wow facts. And you also have endangered status, or whether it's CITES or whether it's United States Endangered Species Act. But this, again, student, 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 student. And then we're fortunate or unfortunate to also have these 10 display boxes outside of our central campus lab, where it's another opportunity to share ocean information with the class, with the school. And it's another way for students to kind of, if they're interested in design or if they're interested in something else, they can connect that interest to the ocean, to the aquarium, and then connect it to the rest of the school. This is a project that a student called Project Lifeline. And so what you're looking at is a little bubble going up to a PVC tubing, going up to PVC. And so what this enabled us to do is when we leave school at 3:30 or so, these bubbles kick on in all of the tanks, and they kick off when we get to school the next day. And so this is fortunate for us, so that when, it's not if, when we have that pump failure or when we have something go wrong, we at least have oxygen going into the tank, so that when we get there the next morning, hopefully the animals will be okay. But to give you some scale, that's just one tank with it. So we had about 50 individual tanks that needed to be tapped into the PVC. A line needed to come down. It needed to be designed so it looked good, so that it would be there forever. Another project that we were fortunate to do a couple years ago is to start monitoring water quality kind of 24/7. And so students set that up a couple years ago, and they are now able to look at every aquarium in our lab and see what the water quality is right now. Again, student-driven, student-driven, student-driven. And why do we do all this in Iowa? The importance is for conservation. So again, we have this aquarium. We have this wonderful lab. It brings students together, and how can we build upon that? So we have a river right next to the school that we started adopting several years ago. And so when we take trips to the nearby lake, we're picking up garbage near it. Just another way to kind of talk about conservation. We have set up, kind of pre-COVID, we have set up annual events to bring in the community to help with this as well. Every October, we cover our windows with these colorful pieces of paper that have something written on them that shows, what's going wrong in the ocean. Is it overfishing? Is it unregulated fishing? And we cover up the windows so that the classroom, cover up the windows with all these problems facing the ocean, and then eventually you won't be able to see into the lab. So you won't be able to see into our aquarium. So kind of that symbolic thing of let's think about what's going wrong, and then, but also let's talk about the positive. So then after that, we add other papers of things, positive thing for change, like good regulation, like whatever it may be, saving a species, so that we kind of talk about the negative, but then we leave with the positive, and then everything's kind of opened up again. We also talk about, the shell trade and what students can do for this. Going back to the Nautilus 6 years ago, we did a trip to Seattle, and students were at a shell shop, and they saw Nautilus shells. And what they wanted to do right away was to go yell at the shop owner, and like, why do you have these? Why do you have these? And so it's probably not ideal to do that. So we talked through it, how to approach somebody with that, and they kind of learned another way to approach, conservation. Because it's not always about, you can't just say no, no, no. You want to learn, educate folks, and then you want to also learn their experiences as well. I don't really care so much about straws anymore. Kind of go back and forth. When the whole straw thing came forward several years ago, students wanted to be involved. And what I think my students find with me is that I'll be honest, with them. I thought it was kind of a dumb project at the time, but students wanted to collect straws and then make these plastic animals out of them to share their message for their individual conservation thought. I also prepare meals for our students. Usually it's the first couple months of school. I go through a lot of recipes and painstaking processes, and then students come in and that's their meal. So plastics that you might find in stomach of a bird, stomach of a whale, but just these different ways to engage students in our aquariums, but also bringing it back to conservation, so that hopefully their brains are always working, always thinking, and trying to troubleshoot pretty much everything. We also started up a Central Campus Oceans Week several years ago. So in May, students present different projects to the whole school, whether it's an interpretive dance, a song, your more traditional trifold posters, but it's to share the work they do, the work being done in the ocean with our whole school, which has about 2,500 students in it. This one, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the parasitic isopod that becomes a fish tongue, but I like this on the left because that was a student's project. This one little parasite this student wanted to share with the whole school, came up with a really cool idea, came up with a movable parasite for that fish's tongue, and just an example of kind of even the small little things that students find interesting can go a long way and have a really big impact. We cap off our Central Campus Oceans Week with an Ocean Olympics. And so we have students compete in teams to try and siphon and bucket water from one bucket to another bucket to fill up a bucket. We have squid tosses. We have lots of different events so students can, just have a fun day of competition, a really kind of laid back day, and then win a medal at the end. And so this was our first Oceans Week. It's our first gold medal team. And aside from all that other stuff that students are doing, one thing that I'm really passionate about is talking to folks. So when I do trips to the Pacific, to Fiji in particular here, I like talking to different school groups. Like talking to whomever I can. And so this particular one, this is a church group, and after the service, I shared with them the work we were doing with Nautilus, and the work we were doing back in Central Campus in Iowa, and just talking to people. And the students the students do that back in the lab as well. And so they give tours to folks who are maybe 4 years old up to 90 years old who come into our lab. Maybe it's talking about one of the displays. Maybe it's showing the different organisms we have in the lab. But they're talking to that next generation. So the title of this talk is educating that next generation. And that's what we do at Central Campus. But maybe more important is the students are also a part of that process of educating kind of younger and younger folks. But then there are adults that come in as well, and the students are educating them. The good thing about having this lab at Central Campus in Iowa is that everybody wants to visit. So our students have lots and lots of opportunities to talk with different people and just talk about themselves and the cool work that they do. We also started something with chalk, and when COVID kind of started and we all shut down, I started just doing chalk drawings, sharing them with the students, and then we started incorporating that into the classroom. So we have different kind of lessons and different things we do outside of the school to talk about different organisms as a way to not just take notes in a book or a notebook, but to also share that information in an artistic way and also share it with the class. And we have also kind of surprised other schools. So last year we showed up at an elementary school on a Sunday, and the students made this for the elementary kids to show up on Monday. So different marine organisms, different ways of talking about organisms, and different ways of sharing the ocean message with them. So a couple upcoming projects we have is this is a new research-focused system, research-focused system that we set up this year, and this is designed specifically for students to do individualized research projects, whatever that may be. And this project here is a water table setup to start the first Midwest culture system of cephalopods, hopefully. So octopus, squid, cuttlefish, nautilus, that's my jam. We've had cuttlefish in the past, we've had octopus in the past, but we really wanted to find a better way to have those animals so that students could not just culture them, but so that students could learn about the process of culturing development. So if anyone's kept cephalopods, it can be very, very, very difficult. They require a lot of time, a lot of commitment, and this system was just set up last week. And so when we get back on Monday, we'll start planning out what kind of eggs we want to bring in, what kind of species we want to bring in, and hopefully it's a cool story that we'll be able to share in the future. So I wanted to bring it back to the lab because again, like students are doing all of the things pretty much. They're doing it all, but we also have this incredible lab that they're taking care of, and you can see some of our social media stuff up there if you want to follow kind of what we're doing, because we're always doing things, we're always changing things, and what I take away from my students is, yeah, they're all different, look different, sound different, but it's a diversity of ideas. I think that is what makes this program so successful. And with that, I thank you all for your time, and I'll end there.